Right. Go.
Hello and welcome to a little wrap-up episode of Events Dear Boy, the podcast for anyone involved in business events. We've just put out the 10th episode in the first season, and before we start on season 2, we thought we'd do a quick reflection on some of the learning and the laughs from season 1. My name is Catherine McNamara, and I'm the marketing lead at the talent agency Pomona Partners, and alongside me is my co-host, Pomona Partners founder and a veteran of 1,000 speaking gigs, Tom Cheesewright.
Hello, Catherine. In this first season, we've interviewed 5 senior people from events businesses, both small and large. And we've interviewed 5 keynote speakers about their experiences from the other side of business events. They've told us about their successes and failures, the things they love and hate, and their top tips. And in case you hadn't noticed, Catherine and I are both struggling a little bit today. So, Catherine, before we both collapse into fits of laughter again, what have been some of your big takeaways from our event organisers?
So I've taken something from all of them, and I think every time we spoke, it wasn't as though there were some consistent threads that ran through everybody. That's
they all
kind
hate
of the
admin.
first thing. They all hate admin. They absolutely all hate admin. And that's one of the things that always strikes me about the events that I've been involved in. I'm like, oh my God, they're so stressful. But Joseph Charlton from Planet was a really interesting person to interview, because he was like, they're not stressful at all. They are not stressful at all. All you need to do is make sure you've got the right, first of all, give yourself enough time. And obviously really get disciplined with that planning piece. So he was great. I also loved the fact that he was giving those insights into what not to put on a menu if you're catering basically for more than 30 or 40 people. You know, it makes sense, doesn't it, that you'd really want to be going there with seafood and fish, but I've just never thought about it like that. Probably because I've been served smoked salmon so many times at events do. So
I've just got this picture of this really sort of wacky outre, like seafood platter coming out for this very large sort of audience expecting meat and potatoes.
Yeah, pie and pea supper. Oh, look, they brought the caviar.
Not oysters.
Yeah. Abby, who joined us on our very first session, was interesting. I mean, I don't know if I could get away with this with any people I work with, but kidnapping the CEO.
Yeah, that was not only kidnapping the CEO, kidnapping a CEO with Danny Dyer.
Danny Dyer, yeah.
What a cracking event.
So, and then the time that they almost destroyed the pitch at Old Trafford, or did they destroy it? And it had rained so heavily.
They sort of got away with it, didn't they? Because they had to move everything indoors at that point. But trying to build a stage on a very high-end football pitch, a very heavy stage that was probably going to sink into it and maybe float away like a...
I'd love to know what that event was.
Like the Ark. I thought, coming back to your thing about about Joseph's point about stress, I thought James Goad was really interesting from Owen James. He was talking about how things always go wrong. Like, it's just the nature of working with that many people in unfamiliar places and that much coincidence. And so much of it's about the ability to deal with it when things go wrong. Like the event I was speaking at, where the day before when I wasn't there, it turned out there'd been a double booking and they had to handle a wedding cake and wedding procession through the middle of the conference.
Oh, God.
A few hundred financial advisors surrounding this poor bride.
My God.
I mean, at least her financial future was going to be sorted.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And then Caroline Moran, just that whole making sure that you've got that balance and, the difference between your work personality and your home personality and boundary setting. So important.
It came back to that admin piece, didn't it? Like she was saying how at home she does none of it, whereas at work it's always nailed. And we all agreed that all of our partners would recognise that trait in all of us. We're all liable to leave things to the last minute and just sort of, I certainly set off on holidays with very limited planning.
Cross your fingers and hope for the best.
Hoping that my family aren't listening to this because I'm organising the entire family's holiday this year. So honestly, it's all sorted. Promise.
Excellent. So we spoke to events organisers, but on the flip side, we spoke to speakers, our speakers from Pomona Partners.
Yeah.
And despite how much we knew them, we got to know more about them. So what were some of your favourite stories that came out?
Poor Grace's story really, really stuck in my head, about arriving at an event abroad that she'd been invited to go and speak at. And pretty much the first question she got asked was, "Yeah, do you mind sleeping in a bunk bed?" And they were basically in a youth hostel, as far as I can tell, a youth hostel in the mountains, as far as I remember. And she was sharing a room with the two of the executives from the company she was speaking for. Yeah, that sounded like a disastrous trip from start to finish. But she was a proper professional and pulled through.
She was, and she talked about that sometimes just making sure you've got that extra day for all
Yeah.
those unknowns, the
Although she'd
unknown
probably have liked one
unknowns.
less
Yeah,
day on that one.
absolutely. Yeah. What about Penny Haslam?
Yeah, Penny and the Pantomime Dame.
Yeah.
That was quite the story. Yeah, event hosts. Do you know what? I was at an event last week. I was doing the closing keynote at an event for a long-standing client of mine, and they had an absolutely magnificent host. He was brilliant. You know, lively, funny, but most importantly, really knew the client, really knew the audience, and could speak knowledgeably about them, knew enough people on first name terms to sort of call them out and engage them. And it makes such a difference to an event having a good one. I would suggest having a pantomime dame hosting a business event possibly wasn't the best choice.
No, somebody clearly sack the work experience kid. But Paul Spires was good. It felt like a little bit more of a sober conversation. Not that we're drunk when we do these, but it seemed to be a lot more serious in some respects. But a really great piece of advice that he gave us was about kind of acting on that feedback and getting that feedback.
Yeah.
And again, not taking it too personally, but one of his very first gigs, that feedback, just 2 words, word vomit, and he
Yeah.
took that on board, and it's like, what do I have to say and who am I speaking to, and really just understanding what his role is as a keynote and how he has to connect with that audience.
It was really interesting, I think, because you are so exposed as a speaker that it is like being a sort of, it's not like being a celebrity, but in some ways you are suddenly, opening yourself up to criticism and feedback, and you are front and center. And so to get feedback like that, like word vomit, but then to take it the right way and, really learn from it and move on, I think that's really, really powerful.
Absolutely.
What about Dan? Do you remember that story about having to construct his own stage?
Oh. Poor Dan. And I don't know whether people clocked or not, but we had terrible tech issues the day we were speaking with Dan. I think he ended up dialing in off his phone in the end, and then he froze.
Yeah, it's not the only time we've had terrible tech issues. The platform we use is very good. It's the one that a lot of the big podcasts use. But that doesn't mean that the people at the other end don't have issues occasionally with their bandwidth or their devices. Usually when we're talking about technology, it's always when we're talking about tech that it happens. And occasionally you'll see if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see our faces sort of go into a neutral position. And it's because we know the machine's still recording and that they're talking, but we can't hear a word they're saying.
So we just have to hope sometimes that what they've said is up to, passes muster. But
it'll all come out in the edit.
So there's so much. So we've talked about kind of the I'm stealing your bit off the script here, just because we've ventured into this territory. We can go rogue.
To be honest, listeners will be shocked that we even have one.
That script's apart from when I look across and look at it, because I still can't remember my words. I'm not an actor. But there's so much that we don't share. So we've covered the tech issues.
Yeah.
But we've had some corkers, haven't we?
We have had some absolute corkers. I think the one that leaves both you and I frequently in stitches is the AI transcription, because we always try and do subtitles for all the videos for when they're on YouTube. So we get AI to do the first pass transcription. And suffice to say, I don't think anyone at Google was thinking about an East Lancashire accent when they were training there.
No, I love it that he can never get it right. So whilst Tom is Tom Teethrag. I'm Catherine from Wales. Catherine Bananarama. But I've gone back through some of our WhatsApp messages in terms of things you've sent me, usually at about 7 a.m. Following the day of recording. Today's best AI transcription fail. I've been wet with celebrities. More AI translation. As 9 or sneakers that might dog come out in the street at the ends. Sorry, everybody, for my erotic R and my Staffordshire tones. Honestly, they are just absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, they are very funny, and we've had some very funny outtakes. The other one that was really disrupted by the sort of technical issues was with Caroline. So yeah, trying to edit the story, the conversation with Caroline together, I managed to make most of it make sense. But there's one bit where we'd be talking about my experience in green rooms on the telly, and coming across a very drunken soap actor who'd rocked up, sockless and still, reeking of whiskey, to come on television, or no, let's say breakfast television. I won't say there. I'll take that out.
Edit.
Yes, edit. A drunken soap actor turned up at breakfast television. I won't be specific about which one. And yeah, so we missed that conversation with Caroline, but we caught the end of it. So if you're ever wondering what that story was about, it was about my experience in green rooms.
The other thing which I will mention, but again, no names mentioned properly, is just, making sure that you thoroughly know how to pronounce your guests' names. And I won't say any more on that. Guilty
as charged in one particular case where I've been pronouncing their name wrong for 15 years. But there you go.
Excellent. So I think that's enough of that.
Yeah.
We're off to record the first episode of season 2 now, so you'll be pleased to know we've got another roll call of unbelievable event organisers and speakers, and we cannot wait to dive in. So thank you for listening and watching to the first season of Events Dear Boy. We hope you stay with us. As ever, please leave a review, like and subscribe, and most importantly, share this podcast. Do it with your colleagues, your peers, and whether they're fellow speakers or event organisers. We'd love to have them listening. We'll be back soon with season 2. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Right. Just.
Oh.
I have a degree in English, and a postgrad in journalism, but I can't speak.